A double felted seam is a seam where all the rough edges are hidden and both sides look the same when it is finished. It can seem complicated, but really if you look at it with this paper, it is easy to understand how simple it actually is. I will go over this again with actual fabric, but really all I have done here with this paper is fold the edges and connected them together. 2 straight stitches would then hold the seams together. You would sew along here on one edge and then flip it over and sew along the orange edge as well. So again, this is all the seam is, and now we will practice it on some outdoor swatches and then on some longer lengths fabric, because it is very easy to do on some small pieces, but once you get into the longer lengths that you'd actually use, the setup really becomes important. So here are my 2 outdoor fabric swatches, and right now I can easily do this seam without any pins or seam tape. It stays together really easy like this. You can hold it together with just your hands on this scale. This not be the case when you're doing an actual project, but it's good to do this just to see how the seam works and practice it a little bit. I'm using a walking foot machine and a bonded nylon thread. The walking foot machine is key, not necessary, but key, because I don't have to try as hard to sew straight. And also, I had to fiddle around with my bobbin earlier because it was looking really bad, and if you're doing a double felted seam, you want your bobbin to be looking just as good as your top stitch. So here's my little sample. It turned out pretty good. Like I said, my bobbin was giving me some trouble, so you can kind of see the issues with that. But now we're going to move on to bigger pieces, more outdoor fabric, awning fabric. And here I have it set up a little bit differently. You can see I have the burgundy piece of fabric offset about 1/2 inch inside the gray. And I've used seam tape this time, which is totally key. You pretty much have to have it or you go crazy. And I'm just pressing 1/2 inch of that gray down onto the burgundy with the seam tape. It's held in place there. It looks like the burgundy just has a gray stripe, but it's actually folded over onto it. And now I can fold the burgundy back over that seam tape. I've got a nice seam there. You kind of see the seam tape kind of peeking out there. I kind of put it too close. But there the seam is set up again. And this is key. You want this to be perfectly solid before you take it to your machine, or you will have a hard time getting the seam to look nice because your fabric's going to be moving all over the place. I don't want to use pins on this fabric, so seam tape is definitely key. So I'm just taking my time, sewing down the burgundy side close to the edge, going as straight as I can, and it's all put together really well, so you can see it's not moving. I'm not having to like adjust or do anything because everything is where it should be and where I want it to stay. So I'm just securing everything with this stitch, and I have my bobbin worked out pretty good, so I'm hoping up underneath there that it's looking nice. And I'm just going to finish up. So great, the bobbin side looks good, so I went ahead and moved on and did the same thing to the gray side, sewing straight down that edge, and it turned out really good. The main thing I can say is that the seam tape is a must. Doing it small, on a small scale, was really easy, and moving on is a little bit more tricky, but basically if your setup is good and you have the seam tape, you're going to be successful at doing this seam. So thanks for checking out the video, and if you're interested in reading any more about outdoor fabrics or how solution dyed acrylic is made, I've written a lot about it on our blog. And let me know if you have any questions about sewing or doing any projects. Thanks for checking out the video.